Okay, I'll start. Just like initial thoughts. I I liked
Oh,
it.
Trey's
I
here.
really. Oh, what?
Hey
Trey's here.
Trey. I was
Oh,
thinking, I didn't say it yet, but I was thinking how funny it would be if like the one meeting that Trey missed is the one of a book called Men Have Called Her Crazy, where it's all about like, man, men suck.
I'm here. I didn't miss it.
You're here.
not all men. That would have been funny. I didn't even think about that. But
Yeah, I was because obviously he wouldn't have meant it, but like it is funny optics. Anyway,
okay,
I'm so sorry, Lizzie. What were you saying?
you're all good. I'm glad Trey's here. Hey, Trey. Um, Off the rip, I really enjoyed it. I felt like I just was listening to my good sis like tell me her life story, and I was like, I mean, some things she would say, I'd be like, girl. Um, but when I initially finished it, I just like didn't super care for it. And then I started reading other, like, I really felt just like very, like, that was nice. And then, like, moved on. But then I started reading other people's reviews. And oh my God, everybody's reviews is so steeped in misogyny that now I feel like very, very protective of this book because I'm
Oh
like,
no,
you need to
really?
back off. Yeah,
I haven't looked
unfortunately.
at any reviews yet.
It's a lot of like, it's like very victim blamey, a lot of the stuff I've seen. And now I'm like, you know what? No, that was a great book.
Well, I think I don't know how many of those reviews are genuine because I think there's a podcast that's like um celeb memoir book club or something, and they really tore it to shreds. So I wonder if a lot of people just heard that and was like, oh yeah, like that's my opinion too.
I bet it's that. And I bet you also it just has to do, unfortunately, with John Mulaney fans because they're just as a result of her having been married, even though he literally isn't mentioned in the book, period, once, other than the
Yeah.
fact that is divorced and she was married to a man, and that's it.
Well, I
His
think some
fans,
people are probably expecting
unfortunately.
it to be a tell-all as well,
Yes, I think so too. I think
which
that's why
I
most
kind of
people
was.
probably.
So I
I
was a
know.
little
I was
bummed.
like,
I was
where's
like,
the tea, girl? But of course, everything else was perfect. So, like, at the end, I was very happy with the story. But when you know how she was like going through her relationships one by one. So it's like she's dating, and then all of a sudden she's like, and now I'm divorced. And I was like, hang on, girl, you skipped something there. Can we
I'm
back
so
it up?
glad you
Talk
said
about
that
that?
because I was like, I literally paused and because I listened to it. I like
Yeah,
listening to memoirs because it's
me
like literally
too.
a person. I was like, I paused and I was like, did I miss something? Like divorced? Where was the marriage?
Right? Yeah. I have a feeling like legally, considering she didn't even say John's name, it was her only choice. I also think because I just for anyone who doesn't know, because I was just reading about this the other day. So John Mulaney and Anna Tendler got divorced. He may or may not have been cheating on her. We don't know. But he did have a child very soon after their divorce with Olivia Munn, the woman that he's with now. Also, and the reason why I bring this up is because Olivia Munn just had or I shouldn't say she had, their surrogate just had their second baby together. So, yeah, exactly, Lauren. So, like, people, I wouldn't be surprised if people were like, especially considering in the book, Anna struggles with, her ideas on what she wants to do with being a mother, whether or not she wants to, do IVF and save her eggs and things like that. I have a feeling that unfortunately there's probably some psychotic John Mulaney. I shouldn't say psychotic. I know that that's ableist language, so let me fix myself. Some very rude John Mulaney fans who just attacked her and called her, misogynistic language, using misogynistic language for no reason, unfortunately. But that's just my guess.
Talia, you should jump in with your celebrity memoir book club take because I know
Oh my
you listened
God. Spill.
first before you listen to the book.
I
So
did.
I need you to be our resident expert.
Okay, here's the thing. I'm a hater and they're haters. And sometimes I think that they're like overly critical. Like I think that they've been open, they both struggle with like body image. And so whenever they're talking about like that kind of thing, I feel like, it really shows their blind spots and stuff like that. But um and yeah, they were overly critical, and there are people who have careers in the arts, so I think they were really, really critical about that aspect. Felt really critical about this book because I saw so much of myself in her, and so I was like, oh my God, like, ew. um, But yeah, I definitely don't support, like, if you haven't read the book, I feel like you can't criticize it yet.
Hi, Natalie. Um, could you tell us like a quick like TLDR of what they said was wrong with the book?
They're very critical of people who write memoirs like shortly after whatever they're writing about, because they think that they don't have enough perspective, which I think could be true. They were like, you're so depressed because you have not like held down a job. Like if you improved your own
Ew,
efficacy, maybe you would feel
gross.
less depressed.
That's really gross.
I feel like
I hate that language.
that was like a month or so ago though, so I'm kind of blanking on what else they said.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. There's some moments where I do feel very defensive of her, and then there are others that are I'm like, oh girl. Like at the end when she's talking about like, oh, this is what like when she's reading the report of her. And I was like, I don't know. It came across, it didn't sit well with me. And when I think about it for me, I'm like, I have the sense like I'm very outspoken and like won't take shit and like am not very much of like a man pleaser in the way that she kind of is, or just a people pleaser in general. And I honestly attribute that to the fact that like I have a very like strong mom, and I've always had like really like strong females in my like female figures in my life. And so I'm like, maybe she just never had anyone to tell her like not to be a people pleaser or like not to teach her those ways. That was like kind of what I was coming around to. And then that's something specifically that the psychiatrist like mentions is like, oh, you actually might not have there's some anger you feel like towards your mother or whatever. And I was like, that kind of makes sense. But then from her perspective, she's so like has decided that like men are just going to be the cause of all evil because that's the easiest worldview for her right now. And I don't know, I had feelings about it, but then I was like, oh, maybe I'm just like have like internalized misogyny I need to figure out. So I don't know, I'm like kind of in the middle, and I'm very much open to changing my mind.
No, I feel that, Kenzie. Oh, sorry to cut you off, Liz. I was just going to say, in that similar vein, I thought one thing that the book lacked was kind of some of that critical intersectionality lens, or like at least acknowledgement of like, hey, I mean, I think she did it a couple times where she was like, I benefited from immense wealth privilege. But I think that it's kind of remiss to talk about misogyny without talking about like class and privilege and race and job and sexuality and like all of these other things. Like I thought, I mean, nobody has to do it all in a book, but it would have been nice at least in like 3 pages to be like disclaimer. I'm not going to cover all those things, but like I acknowledge like in the discussion of misogyny, those are really important dimensions. Because I don't know, like that part read as a little bit like white feministy to me. But like again, not all books have to do everything, and I don't want to like rag on her too much, but I was like, it could have been a deeper like sociological exploration, and especially because she was a grad student and like was a researcher, I was kind of surprised to see that lacking in her book, especially because that's like one of her goals of the project was to get people to understand kind of that complex misogyny. So I would have loved to see some of that in there, or like some references towards that. But yeah.
And part of it too that I have to remember is that like she posted pictures through this whole time period, and her whole life she's been very beautiful, very skinny, white, whatever. And so I can very much see if that's your life experience, then all of the negatives are very easily attributed to men. Because I feel like if I was 5'2" and like looked like her and whatever, like I would probably just very easily want to blame men for everything, or it'd be like the easiest option.
I want to say that you bringing that up, I'm so glad you said that, because it's bringing back like my therapy moments. And like once my therapist looked at me and she was like, it just sounds like you're telling yourself a story. Like that's not like reality. Like you just keep repeating the story to yourself. And that's kind of like at the end when she kept like she just it's men, it's men, it's men, it's men. I wanted to be like, girl, you're telling yourself a story. Like release it, you know?
Yeah, I think you guys put it perfectly. Like, I completely agree with her on every single viewpoint, basically, she has about misogyny and feminism and how, you know, the world is built upon white straight men. But it's just like she struggles near the end. And I think it might have to do with what someone mentioned earlier about how those ladies, or I should say those folks who review the memoir, they don't like memoirs that are super soon after because it doesn't give you enough time to reflect. I could totally see her suffering from the same thing. Because at the end of the book, she's like, I'm doing a lot better. I'm still not great. I'm still not perfect. But like, for example, I only feel like I'm dying when a man leaves me for a day or two rather than a week or a month or months. So it's like, I think it's interesting because we're looking inside of the brain of a woman who still hasn't totally ironed it out and gotten it perfect, because all of us, I think, see how she is still struggling to let go of, I guess I don't want to say take accountability, because but also take accountability. Like she does struggle a little bit with, like, you know, for example, actually blaming her mom for the harm that she caused her, because I was horrified by a lot of the stories of her mom, and it reminded me of some other things, and I was like, this isn't your fault and you don't need to be making excuses for your mom. And she did. I mean, she tried to be like, no, I know, like, haha, I love my mom now, no, it's fine, haha. But it's like, when you do that, you're not giving yourself enough grace to feel the full pain from those actions, you know? And I think it does go back to that people pleasing thing. And I don't know, I don't want to armchair like psychoanalyze her too much, because I don't, or I should say, I specifically, like, as in me, I don't want to, because I don't know what I'm talking about. And I don't want to say anything that could, you know, a woman who's already been to so many fucking doctors and physicians that have seen her so many fucking times, you know? I just don't want to fucking word vomit.
Sorry, a bit of a pivot, but can we talk about Dr. Carr for a second?
That was crazy.
That was so crazy.
Oh
I was
my
like,
God. I could not believe it.
Yeah, I do think that this book underlined the like crisis that there are so many people who are therapists who shouldn't be therapists. And like, I feel so bad for people who seek therapeutic help and like therapeutic relationships, and they get burned by people who like don't know what they're doing. Like, I know I've had that experience where therapists have just said like the most insane, like out of pocket stuff to me, even where I'm like, I don't think you should be able to say that to someone. And like, thank God that I have the wherewithal to be like, this person is saying some insane out of pocket shit to me. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting theme, like in the book, just generally about like psychology, psychological systems. I think also her privilege and experience in the rehab center that she was in, and like being willing to go, and like I do think that she talks about that positionality piece a little bit, but yeah, just interesting theme.
Yeah, it just makes me think. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, on the train, but disclaimer: I have not finished the book yet. Last 2 hours, so it's just interesting to see you guys say that the conclusion is that it was all men, it's all men, it's all men. Because I thought that the story with Dr. Carr was provided to prove that it's not all men, that women can do just as much harm as men. So it's like interesting to see you guys say that in it, and she didn't prove that it was all men, because like she didn't told about harm that women do, but like just interesting.
Yeah, no, yeah, that is
agreed.
crazy to think about. I didn't even, yeah, because it seems like that's one of the real main, like, almost like kind of climax moments in a way, or like a very significant shift happens there, and we don't ever really come back to the fact that like women can do fucked up shit too. I don't know if it's necessarily like, I don't know if she was necessarily like perpetuating misogyny in her actions, but it was definitely harmful. So
it kind of reminds me of something I kept thinking about when I was listening to it too, which is It gave me the writing style sometimes reminded me that she was like a non-author, a non-writer who is like writing her first book. I'm not 100% positive, but just because sometimes she would start talking about, I'm sorry if you guys can hear my boyfriend, by the way. I try to have the mic okay, but he's still loud. So I was like, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Anna Marie Tendler.
Not a writer.
Not a writer. So sometimes she would start giving details and then she would do it for like a very long time. And I would be like, why are we talking about this? Because it's not really relevant. So for example, near the end of the book, she was talking about, the vial that she like, the vial of medicine she spills in the sink. And she spends in the, speaking audiobook, it feels like it's like 5 minutes where she's like, I look up the guide. I follow the guide exactly. It's fucked up. And then it's like this full page of like a conversation between her and the pharmacist where the pharmacist is like, you should do this. And then she says, no, I should do this. And the pharmacist says, no, you should do that. And then she says, okay, I'll do that. And it's like, why don't we just cut to the chase here? Like, I am very interested in hearing about your fertility journey. I'm just not interested in hearing about every details of the phone call about when you broke the vial, And I think that contributed a little. Sorry, go ahead.
On the flip side, I do think there were moments where that was to her benefit that were actually really beautiful. Like in the chapter where Petunia dies and she goes into some of that rich detail. I'm like, this is actually, agreed. I'm like, take it from that other section and put it all.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. I thought the Petunia, I, when it comes to animals like dying in media, I struggle, everyone struggles with it, but I struggle with it because I have a very firm conviction that if you are writing fictional media and you are using an animal dying to get your audience's emotional appeal, then you are a bad writer and you should be doing something else. And so as soon as Petunia started dying, I was like, how dare you? But then in my head, I had to be like, this is a memoir, Mary. This is literally real. Like, she's telling you what happened. So I was just sitting there like in anger, like, fine, I'll listen.
Also,
I was like, it's justified.
Petunia is the people's princess. And
she
Anna
is the
Marie
people's
Tendler
princess.
that. I was like, this book should have actually only been about Petunia.
We all love her.
Men have called Petunia crazy, and probably they were right.
And women have called her perfect, and they were also right.
Wow, Trey's been really quiet. I think we should give the man the microphone and tell us what to think.
Tell us what to think.
Okay, so no, I was gonna say though, to support that point, the portion where she's like taking Petunia around to each room of the house, like, actually really got me. I thought that was really well done. The two parts, the Dr. Carr stuff, like, absolutely was crazy to me. That was what was really crazy. I guess I wasn't totally aware how unprofessional, like, even professionals could be. Also, the one thing I think I will never forget is the description of that one Hinge date or Tinder date where she like went to the guy's apartment and he got mad because she was like making a joke about mansplaining, and then she still dated him for like weeks or months. I thought that was going to be it. It was over because he got mad because she was like, and then she still dated him, which I guess is like kind of her point at the end is like, I need to realize when I don't like someone. Like, that was probably when she should have realized, like, I don't like this guy actually.
Was that Reese?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was funny because she mentioned him at the reading because someone asked like, oh, did you like tell anybody about did you tell anybody that you had written about them? And she was like, well, there's like 3 men that I wrote about, and one of them was Reese. And I like texted him being like, hey, you're in the book, blah, blah, blah. You can read it if you'd like. And he just responded, that's fine. I'm a very interesting person. And so I like knew about that before I read the book. And so when I was reading that, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is that guy.
No way, dude. That's crazy. Stop. Oh my God, that's so fucking funny.
Also, I thought it was crazy. So she like is dating some rock star that's like way older than her, right? And she has this other friend who's also older than her, but not that by a crazy amount. And he was the one that was like, hey, you shouldn't date this dude that's like 30 while you're like 17. And then she dates him later. And then they're still friends later on. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
curious.
that was a little murky to me. I don't know if I missed a little bit. I did listen to this one. This is the first one I've listened to.
Ooh.
Breaking news.
I also think it's interesting. I also think it's interesting if she concludes that like it's all men's fault, but like she explicitly says that about that relationship that like it was good and then like it ended because it was supposed to end and like all of these like nice things about it like they were like legitimate evidence of like the not all men or whatever, but like I think so. I feel like that makes like she combated her own point so often throughout the book, like that it seems weird to me.
I will say, in Anna's defense, the ending, and I just say this because I know Natalie didn't get to the end yet. In the end, she doesn't explicitly say, like, see, I'm perfect, and this is all men's fault. She looks at the diagnosis, this like 20-page diagnosis letter that her psychiatrist had written her while she was in the mental facility. And basically she was diagnosed with 4 specific things, and then there were a bunch of other just tiny details that she completely disagreed with the way that they specifically the male doctors interpreted her, and she believes that it was at least underlying with misogyny, and that the male doctors were refusing to see how sexism affected these things. And I just say this because she does. So for example, the 4 diagnoses she gets, I believe, were generalized anxiety, generalized depression, explosive outbursts or something like that. And yeah, BPD, not bipolar disorder, but
borderline.
Thank you, borderline personality disorder. And she says that she does not agree with the last 2 diagnoses, and also her doctors that she has seen since do not agree with those diagnoses. That's the one thing where I was like, really? Because when I was reading it or listening to it, I was shocked. I was like, girl, can we be fucking for real for a second? Like, but then she was like, no, like my doctors think it's weird too. And then I'm like, well, let me talk to the doctors because I want to know.
Let's violate HIPAA for a second.
Yeah, for real. But anyway, that's just the quick summary for you, Natalie, just because I don't want it to sound like totally she was like, fuck men, I fucking hate them and it's their fault.
Oh yeah, I totally get it. Thank you for that.
Something I really wanted to bring up was she's older, right? She's a millennial, like older millennial, like 32, 33, something like that. I felt myself getting impatient with
39.
Obviously 39. Okay. I feel like the younger generation has been having these conversations about like decentering men for a while. So we're like getting to these points like a lot younger. So I just like kept getting impatient with like with her and these men and like the misogyny and the patriarchy and these things. The story that she's telling herself and her actions that she keeps repeating, I was like, girl, you're too fucking grown. Like, what are we doing? And I kept having to like walk that back and be like, well, like all these things we're seeing about like decentering men and like putting yourself first, and like we just happen to be seeing them on the internet like a lot younger than she was, you know. So
I totally agree.
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of the misogyny that I've seen like reviewing this book is coming at it through that lens of like, I think somebody said something along the lines of like, she's not taking accountability for her roles and these toxic gender dynamics. And I'm like, well, I feel like we've just started having like public conversations about this, like within the past like 10, 15 years, like with the internet, like really getting into it. And like women are like questioning these things, you know? So.
Yeah, I thought so as well. At the, she kind of opened up her talk being like, oh, I really wanted to like shine light on like the complexities in which misogyny exists in like day-to-day life or whatever. And I was just thinking like, you're not really saying anything that hasn't been said already. Like maybe if this book had come out like, I don't know, like 10 years ago, it'd be like more impactful, but she didn't really say anything. I think the most shocking part of the book was the Dr. Carr experience. And leading with that might have been more literally leading with that might have been more impactful.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail right on the head.
I bet she loved that new Katy Perry song.
Yeah.
Stop.
I'll just steal your joke.
Woman's world.
Yeah. I'm glad y'all said that because I kind of felt the same way, but that maybe is a good point that like I'm probably I'm like 6 or 7 years younger than her, but I guess that's substantial, I guess, in the internet age. But I was kind of thinking like, oh, a lot of this stuff I feel like I've been reading online for years, but that doesn't like make her experience not valid. But maybe it is somewhat an elder millennial chuggy thing, if I may. The one other thing, I forget who said it now. It may have been Lauren, but I'm glad that you mentioned the intersectionality of class being like missing in this. And I think there was something that kind of bothered me about it. And I think that was maybe it, because although at one point she's either like has a boyfriend who's super rich, who's paying for everything, or she's like getting paying $12,000 to freeze her eggs or whatever. And she's even when she's dating, she's like, I'm driving into New York City and getting a hotel for the night to like go on these dates. So that's like her experience is not going to be, it's going to be, I would think from my life experience that it would be different from, someone in a different stratosphere.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things, there were so many times when I was listening to the book, and just to be clear, I really liked the book. Like, I loved listening to her. I loved hearing all her evolution, and I really enjoyed it overall. But there were times where she would do things, and I would just like want to roll my eyes and be like, fucking rich people, man. Like, everything she would do for her dog, and don't get me wrong, I would do all this shit too if I was rich, but it would just be like, she does all this crazy shit for her dog, she does all this crazy shit for herself that she should do because she deserves it, but she has the privilege to do so, and she touches on it every now and then, but I don't really feel like she ever takes a good hard look at how much it is affecting her and how much it has affected her. The one time I feel like she did explore that effectively was when she was talking about dating that guy who paid for everything, and they were at dinner or whatever, and then she says something like, can we pack up dinner or whatever, and he says, what, it's just food, we can just get more tomorrow. And she was like shocked in that moment,
is what he said.
Yeah. And that was one moment where I was like, yeah, that's a good example of like, because she was like, he didn't even understand how much a meal is. And I was like, no, totally. This is like a perfect example. But I feel like that's the only moment where I got that lucidity from her on that topic.
Absolutely. I felt like the inpatient place that she went to was like so bougie to me. Like comparative to some of like the inpatient places that you hear about. And like I was like, damn, she got the money to get treatment.
No, literally. Because like I was thinking like this whole time when I was, listening to her, God damn, it would be so nice. And again, I do not want to minimize her treatment and her journey, because everything that she did was so difficult and she deserved the treatment that she got. And I'm so happy that she could. But goddamn, I can't say I'm not jealous and wish that I had the same resources when I'm going through. And when I say I'm going through a depressive episode, I say that just because I'm also diagnosed with depression. So I don't say it in like a casual, like, ooh, would I feel it a little sad? I totally understand that she was literally suicidal. I understand. I just wish poor people could get the same empathy when they're suicidal, and it's not her fault. It's just one of those things where when you're reading it for or listening to it for like 8 hours, it just kind of sucks to get almost rubbed in your face, you know, like, oh, I went to this fucking relaxation camp, me and 3 other ladies. And I know it's not relaxation camp, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because like she feels the same things when she's with like the uber rich, right? Like when she's in the
Yeah, right.
and stuff, and it's moments like those where I kind of can see where the argument of like, oh, if she'd like had a more time demanding or like serious career, she might feel differently, because I mean she's probably spending her time, if you're spending all your time around these like uber rich people that don't need to work, and you're like, oh, okay, that's just the way life is, then you like, I don't know, you don't realize that even though, yeah, work can suck, it also is like a thing to do and like keeps your brain active, and like if you care about what you do, that can be really rewarding and stuff like that. But I don't know, weird thoughts.
I think that's an interesting idea. I think she talks a little bit about the different jobs she's had and how those jobs have like brought her into contact with different kinds of people. Like when you were talking about that, Kenzie, I thought about when she talked about being like a makeup artist for like people who were on TV, and she was like, oh my God, these fucking people. And I was like, yes, yes. And
So
that's
close.
like, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I don't have anything new to say about that. I was just like, yeah, I also kind of felt that way in the book. And also like, you know, now she is a fine artist and doing her photography, and also when she was making the Victorian lamps, and she was going to graduate school, I think, for fine arts of some capacity, and that's its own, you know, kind of class situation, and people you're serving and people who have access, you know, to purchasing those things, etc., those pieces. So, you know, not always the most diverse populations in those places. Yeah, no
like
person could have this as a job.
when
It reminds
her doctor, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go.
When her doctor was like, oh, we recommend that you stay here for the 30-day treatment, and her worry was about like
grad school
failing her master's degree and not like being able to pay for being an inpatient for 30 days. I was like,
or
okay,
rent, or
there's a
literally
difference
anything
here.
else.
Yeah.
That's so real.
It like sometimes when I was listening, I don't know if you guys you've probably been in this situation. If you've ever had like a friend who's like significantly wealthier than you, and then to your face, they're bitching about how little money they make and how little money they have, especially when they're making, especially if you know someone who's making like twice as much as you. And it's so hard to empathize and fully understand, because you just want to be like us as normal people, like as the bottom fucking 99% of society. We just want to be like, be fucking for real, like open your eye. This isn't what like your average American is allowed to go through, you know. But again, I try to give her grace because it's not like she's writing about privilege in America, but again, I would like to have seen her address that privilege a little bit more.
Yeah, no. And part that kind of resonated with me is you see the joke all the time about like how the wealthiest friends are always like Venmo requesting you for stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that moment where she was talking to someone she was dated or was breaking up with or whatever, and he'd like paid for her grad school or something, and she like casually was like, oh, I guess I'll just like pay you back, and he was like, yeah, that'd be great, and she was like, fuck.
Yeah.
I was like, girl, don't offer if you're not gonna do it.
Yeah, I know. It was so funny. And she does another good moment when she was, because remember how they broke up and he was like, yeah, just cut my hair for 8 months. Like,
yeah,
that's
that was so
fucked
weird.
and insane. And she recognizes that for being as fucked as and insane as it is. So I love that she does bring clarity to those moments. It's just when it isn't such an egregious example where I would love to see it, you know,
or
more
the way that,
emphasized.
well, something was interesting is she was like, hey, like, I think I need the $20 more than you do. And he was like, okay. I'm like, you probably could have said that way earlier.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, okay.
Uh-huh.
Like, wow, how many haircuts in was that?
Yeah.
And $20 a haircut is crazy.
Yeah, seriously.
I don't know. Maybe this is a long time ago, but
there was one other thing that blew my mind. Oh my God, it was near the end of the book. She said she had never had sex without pain until they tried a non-latex condom randomly, and that's how she found out she had a latex allergy. And I was like, I was horrified. I agreed with the fact that, like, certainly misogyny plays a role. At the same time, I was like, you're 40? How did you not figure, like, and you're in, like, latex isn't just in condoms. How did this not happen before?
Yeah, it reminds me of something that's kind of like a controversial take, but one that I believe in, and it's you know, in, and not to be like victim blaming at all or anything, but like part of addressing like rape culture is people always need to stand up for like what they don't want or what they do want, and like having like making the consent very well known, and like that's something that we kind of need to own a little bit more to take away this idea of like, oh, they're just being flirty, they're just whatever, or like if something is uncomfortable for you, like say something, you know. And I don't know, that's a little unrelated, but that's what it made me think of when I was reading that. I was like, just sometimes I felt like there's so many moments where I was like, you could have just spoken up for yourself. Like the exact same thing with the haircut, right? Like you could have just said no.
I think that was what one of the things I enjoyed about it, though, and that's partially because I'm also a kiss ass, and I really struggle with telling people no, and telling people when I've been hurt, and telling people anything that I think might upset them in any way, shape, or form. And I am getting better at it. And it's interesting to see it from an outside perspective, because I would think the same thing. I would be like, just tell him. But then in my head, I'm like, well, I know why she doesn't, because I do the same thing. And it was really interesting for me to get to see that, because I don't know, it was just like an interesting piece of my personal psychology to see reflected in another person, I guess. And but again, I had the same thought as a lot of y'all did that we were talking about earlier, where I was like, at your big age, God bless, we all, you know, get there in different ways and in different forms. But some of the things were just, I think it comes out of being rich and privileged, a rich, privileged white lady, which is what we've been talking about again. And I don't really think that that's something anyone could question, you know?
Yeah, and I do agree with, was it Liz that said like women have been conditioned to be that way? Or yeah, socialized to do that. And I was like, yeah, I guess like my mom was so the opposite growing up. So I was like, I'm lucky in that way. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard growing up in Utah too, because that is so like pushed.
Oh, I can only imagine. I imagine, you know, growing up in Utah, since I've been so into learning about Mormonism lately.
Everyone has, man. It's like the
right?
hot thing.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, because there's a reality show too. Yeah, that's in my defense, it was before, well, it's not like it matters. Okay, it doesn't matter. Go back to the book, Mary. I lost my train of thought. Does anyone know where we started with this?
Mom talk was never
okay, Utah. I totally get it, because I totally get it, because you've had to see like women be put in this position your whole, and all of us have, but especially in Utah, where you're seeing women, you know, craft themselves into a submissive being, basically, and uphold that even when it hurts them. And that's what I feel like she followed through for a lot of that. And that's something I empathize with, because I've done that so much, and it's something I still struggle with not doing. And I think it's both looking at my own psychology and looking at what I see in her. It's like partially because we're pussies, and then partially because we just hate, like, I guess are scared of causing anyone else harm or a problem, when instead we could inflict it upon ourselves and just deal with it and bear it, you know? It's just an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I will say that I have been to an inpatient facility against my will. So like literally when we started the book and she said something about, and then they're the ones, I don't remember exactly what she said, but the ones who are there not willfully or whatever, and they're like super rude or something like that. And I was like, yeah, no shit, they're super fucking rude. Like one of the main reasons that I was having such horrible like suicidal thoughts and ideation was because of money, bitch. Money, rent, money. And then you're forcing me to be in this fucking facility for 3 days. How much is this gonna cost me? I'm gonna miss work. Like, you know, so right off the bat, when I started this book, I was like, I don't know if this is for me. But obviously, as you listen to it, it's like, how do you not like empathize with her and like her feelings of anxiety and everything? And where was I going with that thought? There was a purpose to that. And then I got distracted. Oh, the ending. I still haven't looked at whatever the fuck they wrote in my notes. I have it. I still haven't looked at it.
That's so interesting. I was wondering, I don't think I would be able to stop myself. Like if I was given this, 20-page paper that says this is all about you from like 5 doctors looking at you. It's so interesting that you have a similar experience with that.
I just remember being so pissed off. I mean, like this fucking Sylvia Plath bullshit, keeping women like locked up. And they were like, they literally told me, I went to one group session and I went on some like soapbox and they're like, you need to leave. Like, and I was like,
oh. What's so interesting? I feel like what you just said was reflected in some of what Anna said about her letter. She was like, these people don't know the true me. They only saw like a certain slice of me that I allowed them to see. And that's another part where I was like, yeah, I mean, that's fair too. I will say, I thought it was interesting. Well, again, I'm not a fucking psychiatrist. I'm not trying to armchair diagnose, but when she said that they had diagnosed her with BPD, I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's what I thought. And then, but she says, oh, hell no. And that her doctors say, oh, hell no. And I'm really curious where that stalwartness comes from, but I don't know.
It made sense to me too. But if she doesn't claim that, then like,
yeah, absolutely. It's just interesting. And I will say as well, BPD, I feel like is just a like label they'll give on any psychotic woman, because it's just an easy one to throw on if nothing else works. So I can't blame her at the same time.
I'm like, let's just go all the way back in regressive female psychology and just call it hysteria.
Yeah, literally. No, literally. That's kind of what it feels like.
We're talking about this
Schedule the lobotomy.
We have to go back to the 4 humors.
No, literally, yeah. Oh, dude, unironically, you know what you just reminded me of, and something I wanted to bring up? I really respected and adored and loved how she is so like hippy dippy spiritual and embraces it and loves herself for it. I loved hearing about it. I loved hearing her because I don't believe in the bullshit. Sorry, I don't believe in it, but it's okay. And I love listening. I genuinely, I know I sounded very reductive there, but I genuinely love listening to it. It makes me happy. Like listening to her talk about, different psychics and mediums and doing her tarot cards in the morning and stuff like that. I just love it because I think using spirituality in any form is such a healthy way of helping you interpret your life, Well,
I was so perturbed though because she is a Jewish person and she really didn't talk about that at all.
Oh yeah, dude, I totally forgot she was Jewish until you said that right now.
Mentions it a few times, and it's funny because we did the meet and greet with her afterwards, and I was like, listen, I know you didn't say anything about being Jewish in the book, but I picked up what you were putting down because I'm like a Jewish mystical person. And it was weird because she didn't really say anything about that.
Interesting.
I don't know. I was just like, there's obviously so much about your identity and your like spiritual practices and your cultural understanding that is influenced by your Judaism. Like as she's talked about, as John Mulaney has joked about, like, yeah, I was just really shocked not to see that in her book at all.
Yeah, I felt like John Mulaney has talked about her Judaism like so much more than she has, and that's how I
derogatory.
Oh,
John Mulaney derogatory about her Judaism. I mean that's
not what I remembered. I just remember it being, or I guess he was like Jewish bitch. So there's that.
He was like my bitch wife, but like in a derogatory way. I'm like, okay. Yeah, okay. Our problematic king. I mean, we have to have our John Mulaney moment on this call. Our problematic king, like, love him, hate him, love him. He anti-Semitic. anti-Semitic king.
You know what's so funny? Because I have never really watched John Mulaney stuff. When he did like a live series a couple of months ago, and I watched that, but I've never seen any of his other specials. And I was talking to some of my friends, and I was like, "Oh, I'm reading the new Anna Marie Tendler book because they're big John Mulaney fans." And I was like, "I'll tell you guys if there's any like John Mulaney tea." And one of my friends was like, "Oh, you mean the Jewish wife? How he always talks about how he has a Jewish wife?" And I was like, "What?" And that my friend was like, "Yeah, no, that's like the thing in all of his jokes. It's like, yes, my Jewish wife." And I was like, I had no clue that was even like a John Mulaney thing.
Yeah, I'm like, on the one hand, at first we were like, haha, this is funny and kind of true. But then it was like, it got to a point where we were like, okay, John Mulaney, it's time for you to stop doing that. And then he went on, because, he like writes for SNL and stuff, and he wrote some like really crazy, like anti-Semitic sketches for SNL. And I was like, all right, I don't think it's a joke anymore. Yeah, so
that's so
I
interesting.
don't know. Again, I am a longtime John Mulaney fan, so I'm deep in their lore, in Anna Marie Tendler's lore, in the Petunia lore. But yes, complicated person. He is not Mormon. He did grow up Catholic, I think.
I think he's Catholic. I think that's correct.
But yeah, anyways, to go back to Anna Marie Tendler being Jewish, I was just kind of surprised that she didn't really talk about that at all in her book, considering how much of a focus on like mysticism she has.
I think that's such a good and interesting point, especially because I would have loved to learn and hear more about like that overlap between mysticism and Judaism, that she either whether or not she follows Judaism now, I'd love to see how that has affected and shaped her mysticism. It'd be so interesting.
Is it considered like close practice though? Would that be like a problem?
Well, she is Jewish though, or like, what do you mean?
Oh, just to like talk about it like more openly.
Oh, you can talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Another place where I felt her, I'm also Jewish, where I felt it was so absent was in talks of therapy and also her relationship with her mom. To me, those are both places where like that I think are so Jewish. So I was like, I would have been really interested, like Jews invented therapy, like talk therapy. And so
is her mom Jewish or is her dad Jewish? Because that was my question when I was thinking about that, because I want to say maybe her mom isn't Jewish.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's see if we can find out.
I'll let you know.
Me too.
I'm like, because that's everything.
Anna Tendler, and the thing that autofills is lampshades.
No, Talia, that's
so
so real though. And that's why I'm like, I need to know the answer to that question. Because that like makes like that's everything.
She did say that they only celebrated like the major holidays, and they didn't believe in God. That's what I remember.
I feel like that's such a classic way to be Jewish though. Like that's also my relationship roughly to Judaism. And so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it was funny. Like I said, when you go to a book signing, you only have like 30 seconds with the person. And I was like, game recognized game, like Jewish witches, haha. And she was like, haha, yeah. I was like, come on.
I just saw something. I just saw something interesting. Her thesis was titled "The Lip Filler Phenomenon: Modern Medicine, Kylie Jenner, and Post-Feminist Female Sexuality," which is an interesting topic.
That's her thesis?
That's the title of her thesis. Yeah.
I says it hear that, and it just reminds me of like how wealthy she is.
I could not hear a word you said. I looked over and I saw you put on my background, and I was like, oh my God, I'm dead.
I want you to walk us through this piece.
Okay, well, obviously, we have the sexy fireman on the right. She kept referring to him, and specifically near the end, she talked about how she was getting horny when she was thinking about him. And I was like, okay, girl, calm down. So I left that in. This dog is fucked up, bruh, because that's what I felt like every time she talked about Petunia. I was like, this dog is fucked. It needs
He's fucked.
yeah. Rest in peace. She's sleeping on the bed. As you can see, she's having a great time with her psychotic medications on the table. And then the hospital put up some posters for her, of course. And then the last thing, just the picture in the back. That's literally how I felt the entire time she would talk about men. Like, that's what it felt like men were doing to her constantly when she would go on dates with them and shit like that. And I thought that it was just a good summary of the men have called me crazy.
No, like this is perfect. I'm gonna post this to our Instagram, like hard
Yes,
post.
that's perfect. I'm gonna tweet it. If she has a Twitter, I'm gonna tweet it at her.
If you put it on Instagram, she will see it. Twitter,
Oh,
I'm not
slay.
sure.
That's
But I
perfect.
think she'll see it on Instagram.
Yeah, she's on the gram.
That's so funny. I hope she likes it if she does see it.
I can't find anything on her parents in particular, but I will say that like her last name is like Yiddish, so her dad is probably Jewish, but I don't know if her mom is also.
I think that might be right. I think at least her dad is Jewish, but I wasn't sure about her mom.
Everything says like a Jewish family, so it might be that they were both. But that's as much as I can do for now. Might need to do some deeper sleuthing later.
Thank you, Oracle Kinsey.
I got you.
Speaking of Oracle, I think my favorite part of the entire book is when she hires a dog psychic.
Yeah,
I loved that.
I wanted to do that.
I have never looked up so fast dog psychic near me because I have some questions for my dog.
My
Here,
mom-
I'll bring her back into the
My
frame.
mom hired she frequently hires hello pebbles.
Ooh.
Get that dog brown contacts immediately. My mom frequently like hires like mediums and psychics, but she did hire one because like we had a cat that was like 16 years old and she was like not doing too hot. So my mom was like, is she ready to go and like to like be put down? And the psychic was like, yes, she's ready. And I was like, that's a crazy thing to ask a psychic. Like, do you just anyway.
That's not their job. I'm like, that's your job though.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hear 16-year-old cat and you're like, yeah.
I need your help. You have to kill me.
I really related to how fucking attached she was to that dog because, girl, I don't know what's gonna happen when Rufus goes to meet Jesus. Like,
Yeah, it's like I felt like when I was listening to the chapter about Petunia dying, it was like I couldn't breathe because it's just like that. It just sucks losing a pet, and I hate listening to it, and I hate when it happens, and I listened to it on like 2.5 times speed because I was like, I respect you, Anna, and I respect Petunia, and I want to honor you and hear the story. I don't want to hear it at the same time though. It's just tough.
Life is hard and then you die.
Literally. And watch all of your pets die.
any final thoughts about the book?
Do we
I
wanna
just
do our
want to know
ratings
with
real quick?
a yes or no, has a man called you crazy?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Yes.
I can't think. Here's the thing. I've been dating my boyfriend for almost 7 years now, and if he ever called me crazy, I would leave in a second. So he has never called me crazy, which means a lot of men haven't gotten the opportunity to call me crazy. And I'm 26. So
No, that's real.
yeah, I think it's probably yes, but I can't say for sure.
Trey, you could do it right now.
Yeah, great. Call
Yeah.
it crazy.
You know what, Mary? No.
You are one crazy.
I don't think I've
Careful,
ever.
we're recording. You might get canceled.
I honestly don't think I've ever called a woman crazy, unless it
Thank
was
God.
maybe my little sister when she was like 4. No.
She probably deserved it.
Mhm.
Now we
gotta-
are gonna go back,
Siblings do.
Trey, and verify this with every woman you've ever spoken with. So
That's it's a good
And I
idea.
have the receipt.
Yeah, that would be a fun like documentary or something.
Oh my God, yeah. Is Trey a misogynist? Let's find out.
We'll get to the bottom of it.
My Instagram ads think that I'm a lesbian, if that counts.
Okay, slay girl.
You do have
Not
that
this
in your
bad.
favor.
You've got that diva aura about you.
Mhm.
All
Um,
right.
Do you guys want to do ratings real quick? If so, I guess I'm starting. I'll just say mine. So I guess at least I am. I gave it, for me personally, and I fucking hate rating memoirs because they're such a personal thing. So I don't often rate them on like writing, or I don't rate them heavily based on like the writing. So this one, 4 out of 5 for me, because it was just enough to get me in and I loved it. I loved listening to it, even if it wasn't perfect. So 4 out of 5.
I also give this a 4 out of 5, or like if we're being really granular, a 3.75 out of 5, because I love memoirs. I love this memoir. I thought the format of the memoir was good. I liked that it went between her time in the hospital versus her personal experiences, and just like I liked that from like a writing standpoint. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. I mean, it definitely has like the deeper implications that we talked about, and loses points some places and gains points other places. But as far as the book went, I really liked it, and I like her.
Yeah, I gave it a 2. I think I just have been reading a lot of other good books and giving them such high ratings that I'm like, okay, I need to even it out. And I know this was my choice. And now here I am giving it a 2.
That's so funny.
But I like, or 2.5, because I'm like, yeah, like I'm like in between on it. I don't know.
Oh my God, Kinsey, this is just like me with Remarkably Bright Creatures, because I recommended that one. And then you loved it, but I was like, this is like, okay. Like the same thing, just switch.
It's fine. I'm happy to be the voice of a dissent.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would give it a 3 out of 5. I was never bored. I enjoyed it. I really did. Like every time I'd press play, I'd be like, okay, it doesn't feel like it never felt like a chore. But what I love about it is if I ever recommended it to someone, I think it would bring out any misogyny in them, which I would also be curious to like hear what, like if I ever recommended this book, like hearing what somebody thought about it would tell me a lot about them more than like the book. You know what I mean?
I agree. That makes a lot of sense.
I'll go. I'm with Liz. I give it a 3. All the problems I think we've talked about. I also was never bored. I was really I'm, for whatever reason, I'm a sucker for like hospital setting and movies and stuff. So I was like really into that. I think, yeah, I think her story is interesting. It's a little bit of like, should you be writing a memoir this close to it happening in your life, and when you still have so much of your life, hopefully. But yeah, but I liked it overall. 3 out of 5.
Is Natalie still here? Does she want to tune in? I can't.
I mean, I haven't finished it yet, but it's pretty solid
right.
3. I think it's fine. Like, it's fine.
All right. Well, thanks.
Talia get to go? I'm sorry, I just don't want to cut her off. I'm not sure if she got to get a rating.
Oh, yeah, duh.
Sorry, thank you. I'm sorry I gave it a 2. I just saw so
That's
much
fine.
of I just saw so much of myself in her.
Go vote for October and November's book. So first and second choice matters. The way I rate it is I give your first choice 2 points and your second choice 1 point, and then we'll obviously get like a natural list from that.
Don't boo, vote.
What?
Don't boo, vote.
Exactly.
Pokemon Go to the polls.
Yeah. All those.
Well, thanks for joining. Kinsey, do you have any final thoughts? No.
Good to see y'all.
Damn, you
Don't
hated
get a French bulldog.
Yes.
Yeah,
Don't buy
true.
from a breeder. There's so many dogs at the
Mhm.
shelters and they have less health
Yes.
problems. Okay. Bye.
Kelly, it was so nice meeting you.
Yeah,
Bye,
nice meeting you.
guys.
Thanks for joining.
Thank
Bye.
you. I'll see you guys next
Bye.
month.